Hey guys, it's Samantha and welcome back to my channel. I have my August wrap up. I cannot believe that we are already in September. We have been in this pandemic for 6 months now, in September, because I've been working from home since it started. And I just can't believe how fast time has gone. September 1st to me means fall, even though it's not officially fall until later in September. So I'm very excited to decorate my house for fall. And I'm starting to switch over my summer clothes to my fall clothes, so that's just like my favorite time of the year is fall. I love the sweaters, I love my Uggs, pumpkin everything, the decorations, the colors, so I'm pumped. So I am here to talk about all the books I read in August. I only have like half of them on hand. As you guys know, I'm big on unhauling my books to make space for new ones because I'm constantly buying books. This month I actually I have a stack of borrowed books from my best friend, so I read two of her books, so I gave those back to her, and I unhauled a couple others and let my mom borrow, I think, one of them. So if I don't particularly like a book and really feel like it was okay even, and I don't think I'll ever reread it again, I don't want it on my shelf, I usually unhaul it. I either donate it to the food shelf from my hometown where my stepfather helps out, or I'll sell them on Mercari or eBay, Facebook Marketplace for a really cheap price just to get rid of it because I don't have the space for it basically. So I'm going to go through quickly my stats, and then I'm going to talk about each book and the rating I gave it, and I will go into detail for my favorites for the month. So for the month of August, I read 16 books, and 4 of those became favorites of mine. So about a quarter of the books I read. 16 is not bad. I did do 20 last month. I was hoping to do more this month, but I feel like a lot of the books I read were just okay, so it didn't really help with my bit of a reading slump, and I wasn't in the mood for some books. I also had a lot of personal stuff going on, so that kind of stopped me from reading as much as I'd like to. So I'm hoping I can get back on track in September. I already have my TBR put together. A couple of these books were e-arcs from NetGalley, so I don't have those on hand either. But I read a total of 16 books, like I said. The number of pages was 4,741 pages. I read, my shortest book was 176 pages, and my longest was 658. For my genre breakdown, I had 1 middle grade, 3 poetry, 3 young adult, 1 chick lit, 2 young adult fantasies, which is huge for me, 2 thrillers, 3 contemporaries, and 1 young adult romance. I had 5 3 stars, 2 4 stars, and 9 5 stars. So the majority of my books were 5-star reads this month, which is awesome. I always love when that happens. So the first book that I read in August is an e-arc that I got from NetGalley that doesn't come out until October, but it's by one of my favorite authors, and I could not wait to read it, and that was Trouble in Paradise by Ellen Hildebrand. I gave that book 5 stars. It is a chick lit, and it comes out in October. I unhauled, and that was Avengers Assembly #1 Orientation. It is a middle grade novel by Preeti Shibber, I believe, and I gave that 3 stars. And that was my shortest book for the month at 176 pages. My book of the month picks, and that is The Unraveling of Cassidy, Holmes by Alyssa R. Sloan. This book doesn't officially release until September 1st, so Book of the Month was able to get it early, which is awesome. I love when that happens. This book was a contemporary, and it was so good. So if you are a fan of Taylor Jenkins Reid, Daisy Jones, and the Six, this is the perfect book for you because it's very similar. So we follow our main character, Cassidy Holmes, who was in a popular band in the 90s called Gloss. And they were pretty much like Spice Girls. They all had their own specific names. Like Cassidy was known as Sassy or Sassy Cassie, and the other 3 members each had a name as well. And we come to this point where there's a little reunion for a movie that they are in, and they find out during this interview that Cassidy committed suicide, and they're all very taken back by it because she was very much full of life when she was younger, and they haven't really talked to her in a long time. They lost connection over the years, but they can't piece together why she would kill herself. And because everything seemed perfect in her life and their social media. And when they did talk to her briefly, she seemed happy. So we go into alternate timelines between the 90s and now, and from different points of views. So for the 90s sections, it's all from Cassidy's point of view, which is so interesting to see all the stuff that she deals with. And then in the present time, it's through each of the remaining band members. This book does deal with some heavy stuff. It talks a lot about the Me Too movement and sexual abuse. There's drug abuse, self-harm, suicide. So it's pretty tough, but it's also very eye-opening. And I flew through this book. The way that the characters were so complex and how the author was somehow able to keep them all straight was awesome. And I loved hearing Cassie's story and kind of getting a picture of idea of what it was like as a pop star in the 90s, because I was born in the mid 90s. I was born in 95, so I was pretty young when the 90s took place. I remember my sister liked a lot of like the 90s stuff, so I've watched it with her, or listen to NSYNC with her and Britney Spears and all that stuff. So it was just kind of interesting to see what that was like, and this book was just fantastic. And it's a debut, I believe, and a very impressive one. That was a book that I also unhauled, and that was a book that my friend from college sent me that her friend wrote, and it is called Undaunted by Rachel Dowd. I gave it 3 stars, and it is contemporary. This is the Once Upon a Book Club's pick for the July box, yeah, because they're a little behind. And that is Today, Tonight, and Tomorrow by Rachel and Solomon. This was my first time using Once Upon a Book Club, and I loved it. The gifts were great. It is $40 a month, and you get the book, and then you get like 4 or 5 gifts with it. And on the pages of the book, it tells you when to open your gift, so that gift coincides with what you're reading, which is awesome and so fun. This book was so good. I think I read it in a day because it was so fantastic. It is enemies to lovers romance, and it follows our main characters, Rowan and Neil, who are high school seniors, and since freshman year, they have been competing to be the best of the best in their class. And it comes to the time where valedictorian is about to be chosen, and they have this game on their last night of high school before graduation, where I forget what it's called. Howl. And basically what it is a scavenger hunt for seniors to kind of get the last hurrah and do a little tour of their town. And the winner gets like a chunk of money to go toward college, and the junior class puts it on. And what Rowan and Neil, right? Yes, Neil find out is that the class is basically going up against them and wants to take them both down, so they end up forming an alliance. And through that, you see them kind of talk about their rivalry and develop a quick friendship that turns into something more. It is adorable. Like, this book was everything. Like, that's all I can say. It was so good. Is that I read was City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This is a fantasy, obviously, and I gave it 5 stars. I started a buddy read this month with my friend Ellie from Ellie's Little Library, where we are going to read the Mortal Instruments series, because we're probably like the only people on the planet who haven't read them yet. And we're going to do 1 book a month because they are pretty heavy, and as the series goes on, there's 6 books. The 6th book is massive. I devoured this book. Next one I read was another favorite of mine that I do not have on me because I borrowed it from my best friend, and that is One Kind of Girl by Alyssa B. Shinemo. I gave that 5 stars, and it is a contemporary. So What Kind of Girl is a hard-hitting contemporary. It follows our main character. I can't remember her name. I always forget characters' names. And she is kind of like a popular girl, and she's dating the track star, Golden Boy. I think his name was Matt. It doesn't matter. And she one day comes into school with a black eye, and she says that her boyfriend hit her. She goes to the principal and says her boyfriend hit her. So from there, the school kind of divides into where half are blaming her and half are blaming him. And you just kind of see her go through the motions of this abuse and coming forward and all of the hate that she has to experience because of it. And they organize this protest to try to get him expelled. And it was so crazy. Like, I don't want to give anything away, but the ending of the first part was like, what the hell? So the first part follows one character, the second part mostly follows another character, and the third part puts them together because they're best friends. So it was just interesting to see how they are both dealing with it. Like, one's a girl who was abused, and one's the one who's the best friend of the girl who was abused. And it was very eye-opening and relatable, unfortunately, to today's society and how we do a lot of victim blaming. Another arc on my Kindle that comes out on September 1st, and that is Save Steve by Jenny Hendricks and Ted Kaplan. I gave that 4 stars, and it is a young adult book because I borrowed it from my best friend. I gave it 5 stars, and that is the Black Flamingo by Dean Atta, and it was a free verse, and it was fantastic. The next is another one I don't have because I let my mom borrow it, and that is The Night Swim by Megan Golden. It was another one of my Book of the Month picks, and it is a thriller, and I gave that 5 stars. So I got rid of it, and that is Allegedly by Tiffany B. Jackson. It was our Books Are Better Than People book club pick. I gave it 3 stars, and it is a young adult. Go into it here, but that is Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer. I gave this 3.5 stars, but for the sake of this review, I'm lowering it down to 3. And this is my biggest book for the month. It is a fantasy, and this was at 600 pages. I read was another arc from NetGalley that comes out September 7th or 8th, I believe, and that is The Wife by Shalina Boland, and that is a thriller that I gave 3 stars. The Ever After by Kiera Cass, which is a selection of short stories from her series The Selection, and I gave this 5 stars, and this is young adult. Which was my last favorite for the month, is another free verse, and that is Punching the Air by Ibi Zaboy. I think I said that wrong, I apologize, and Youssef Salam, and this was fantastic. I gave it 5 stars, and one of the authors, Youssef Salam, is actually one of the Central Park Five, who in the 90s, I believe it was, or early 2000s. It was early 2000s. If you're familiar with the Central Park Five, also they're known from the documentary When They See Us. These 5 boys were accused of raping this girl. It was one girl. It was our main character, Amal, who is a 16-year-old black male who gets into a fight with a white boy, and the white boy ends up not waking up because he's so badly hurt, and he's with a bunch of friends when this happens. So his friends all take a plea deal, but he doesn't. He goes to trial, and they find him guilty of the injury, even though he is very much like, I threw the first punch, but I did throw the last. But unfortunately, the white boy is not awake to say what really happened. So we see him get put into jail in a juvenile detention center. We see him go through the motions of that and have to live with that and try to grow from that while he's trying to appeal his case. And it deals really heavily with the injustices in our justice system for people of color and what that's like for people of color to go through and their experiences. And it really hits home because some of the poetry that's in this book was actually written by Youssef when he was in jail for the crime that he didn't commit before he was exonerated. So it was just kind of like, I was speechless reading this and afterwards, and it's really eye-opening, and it's so powerful. It comes out September 1st. I have seen it all over at Barnes & Nobles, have released it early. I highly recommend picking it up. It is written in free verse, so it's a pretty quick read, but it definitely packs a punch. So that is my August wrap up. Let me know if you guys have read any of these books and your thoughts on them. And look forward to me posting my September TBR within the next couple days. Stay safe, guys.